Hey everyone. Tonight we begin with something a little darker. A time of plagues, punishments, and pottage. We're easing into what life was really like during the Middle Ages. Forget the castles and chivalry Hollywood sold you, because the truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single day. Before we drift, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. If you genuinely enjoy these quiet journeys, you can tap subscribe whenever it feels right. Settle in, breathe gently, and let the bell of a distant church guide us back to 1325. Could you wake to a room of cold breath and straw and call it morning? Could you eat the same thin pottage day after day and call it comfort? Imagine the lane, mud tugging your shoes, smoke wandering from low chimneys, a market crier threading prices through the mist. Feel the weight of a curfew bell, and the night watch murmuring prayers. There is candlelight on rough parchment, rain ticking on slate, bread that is heavier than your thoughts. There is work before dawn, and rest only when the fire sighs. It sounds harsh, yes, but notice how small worries loosen in the dark. Rest now. A soft time slip. Waking in 1325 feels like opening your eyes under a roof that remembers rain, while a bell outside tugs the corner of sleep with two gentle fingers. Not a jolt, a suggestion. The sound finds you in straw and wool, and the morning nods as if to say yes. This is the moment the mattress rustles like dry grass, pretending to be a bed. The blanket is heavy, warm where your breath pooled in the night, cool at the edges where the air has been thinking. Packed earth meets your feet when you shuffle, smooth and firm. A floor made by footsteps more than by plans. The room is one space, doorway and hearth, bench and chest, all within reach if you know the reach. You hear the household more than you see it. A child turns over and makes a small sound like a bird considering a new branch. A cousin murmurs something that was important to a dream and then lets it go. In the corner, a hen adjusts the straw with professional gravity. Somewhere behind a low hurdle, the goat exhales a long philosophical breath, as if he has thoughts about Bell's light is a careful visitor. It slips through the thatch in hair-thin lines, stitches of pale gold mending the darker cloth of the room. Dust turns to falling stars in those threads. The bell carries again, slow and patient, a clock for a world without numbers on the wall. You learn time in notes and beams, not in hands and faces. The hearth is a low red idea under ash, a smolder more than a fire. Tap the crust of gray, and a few coals open their eyes, foxes pretending to sleep. A rushlight stub leans in its dish, a blackened wick waiting for an evening. It will not be asked to light again just yet. On the chest, a cup with a small chip where your thumb fits perfectly. A wooden spoon, thinned by circles. A folded cloth that once was cleaner than it is, and will be cleaner than it was later. You sit up, and your joints write you a polite letter of complaint that ends in forgiveness. The straw answers with a crisp yes. The blanket slides from your knees and pools like a small brown lake. The floor returns a little of the night's cold to the soles of your feet. A greeting, not a rebuke. You breathe in, cool, smoke, wool, something sweet from stored grain. You breathe out. The breath curls and disappears. A ghost with no interest in HUNTINGS. We begin with small details, not to alarm, but to notice. How people rose with sound, with light, and with each other. The bell does not demand. It invites. The room does not rush you. It accompanies. Time here belongs first to the village, the fields that will ask for hands, the well that will ask for shoulders, the low church tower that keeps the sky company. Only afterward does time wander into your keeping, and even then, only for a while. You touch the door beam in passing, where the wood has been polished by palms long gone. There's a cross scratched there, Not grand, just true. You do not pray, exactly. You remember, which might be the same thing. The wood is smooth and warm where stories have decided to live. Listen again. Outside, a cart thinks about a rut and commits. A dog shakes itself into the day, tags and ears, and dignity rearranged. A neighbor coughs in a way you recognize and folds the sound into their sleeve. Your own house answers with quiet, the soft shift of rushes, the faint tick of cooling embers, the low timbre of sleep leaving. Perhaps you smile at nothing, at the hen's earnestness, at the goat's stern opinions, at the way the roof hunches a little lower at the eaves, as if to keep secrets you do not need to know. Dry humor lives here, like a well-kept tool useful. Sturdy, not flashy. Beyond this room, there are other rooms, scattered like shells along a valley. The same one-space plan, the same kind of dawn, the same bell in different throats. Names change. The morning remains. If history is an ocean, its tide is this beds of straw, blankets of wool, a single space that holds sleeping, cooking, mending, storing, and the slow unfurling of the day. Do centuries notice when we arrive? Or do they continue their quiet work of turning night into morning, content to let us borrow a few breaths? Maybe arrival is only the moment we remember where we are and allow the place to finish waking us. The bell thins to a line and then to a memory of sound. The light takes a small step across the beam. You move with it. The blanket is folded back. The floor gives you its steadiness. The door waits, not impatient. And as you stand, as the room rearranges around your standing, you understand the simple oath this morning asks. Listen, rise, and let the day begin without hurry. When evening comes, the bell will turn the world the other way, and the room will gather you back. For now, the house breathes with you, in and out. A soft time slip. A kind beginning. The past sits beside you like an old friend, saying nothing urgent at all. The room, the straw, the bell. 3 quiet facts that hold the morning in place while the world remembers your name. The hut is timber and wattle, smoke softened and close. It leans inward like an old friend sharing a secret. Above, thatch keeps yesterday's rain in its memory and lets the cold think twice before it enters. Livestock huddle nearby, warm and practical. A hen rearranges her straw with bureaucratic care. The goat, tethered with dignity, breathes a slow ribbon of steam and blinks as if time moves at his command. Privacy is a word from the future. Here, there is company constant, ordinary, kind in the way routine can be kind. The hearth smolders. Ash holds a blush of coals, small suns under gray. You pass a breath across them, and they remember their work. Ember turning to eye to glow. Smoke rises thinly, threads itself along the rafters, and draws a soft line to the door's faint seam of light dot as you breathe in. Imagine wood smoke and wool. The smoke is sweet and old. The wool is animal and honest. It is the scent of keeping warm, of mended sleeves and evenings spent in patient talk. As you breathe out, imagine frost softening on the doorframe. White lace retreating into bead, bead into dark grain, as the house persuades the day to begin. A straw mattress murmurs as you shift. The rustle sounds like a field remembering summer. The blanket weighs enough to steady a racing thought. Underfoot, earth is packed and cool, polished by years of feet into a quiet, faithful floor. Every step here is a footnote in the house's long, unremarkable book. The bell speaks again. Not sentimental, not stern, steady. It is the village clock, on time with the sun, counting neither minutes nor ambitions, only the pace of light. The note walks the lane, touches shutter and eave, steps across thresholds, and arrives in this room with the same voice it wore yesterday. Not look around. A peg with a hood, frayed where fingers pinch. A cup with a chip that fits your thumb like it was made for it. A spoon thinned to a crescent by thousands of circles. A chest that keeps more than it seems able to hold, cloth folded into obedience. A pouch of hard-earned salt. A coil of rope that remembers storms. Each thing is not new. Each thing is loyal. Someone turns over. A cousin's dream spills one last word and sinks. A child smacks their lips, accepts the day without knowing it. In a place where nothing quite belongs to one person alone, tenderness is measured in small averting glances, sleeves lifted without comment. The way a quiet joke breathes and then is allowed to leave. Light stitches the room back together. It slips through thatch and chink as thin needles, drawing gold threads across beam and bench. The edge of a bowl brightens. The grain in the wood grows readable. The ash shows its surface like a soft planet. You could tell the time by how far the light has walked along the door. You do. You always have. Does a house remember? Perhaps only the repetition of us, the places where hands fall, the spots where feet hesitate, the corner where children always build their small empires of sticks. Or perhaps it carries our echoes the way wool carries smoke, gently and for a long time. Outside, a cart decides to risk the rut and prevails. A dog shakes himself into his name. A voice calls softly across the lane, not to you, but not to you. The bell, untroubled by meaning, marks the next breath. You lay your palm on the doorbeam. The wood is smooth where many palms have done the same. A cross scratched shallow, there is more habit than proclamation. Your fingers find it as they always do. Not prayer, exactly. Agreement got another breath. In, wood smoke and wool. Out, frost letting go. The room does not rush you. The straw does not complain. The bell does not argue. This is how people rose. With sound, with light, and with each other. The day waits with an open hand. The latch lifts. The hinge remembers its single note and plays it faithfully. Cold air leans in, curious but polite. Behind you, the coals blink and settle to their steady red. Ahead, the bell thins to silence and leaves you the simple decision of the first step. The room, the straw, the bell still here, still enough. You carry their calm with you past the doorframe where frost has turned to droplets, down the threshold worn into a small valley by your people's feet. The morning takes your weight and gives back steadiness. And so, without hurry, the day begins. A quiet morning ritual begins not with porcelain, but with a bucket by the door and a path that remembers your steps. The handle taps your palm, familiar as a handshake. The air is cool and kind. Frost trims the thatch in fine lace, which loosens as breath finds the morning. Out back, the hedge stands as a modest curtain. A wattle screen leans, offering a small island of privacy without pretending to be a room. The ground is honest underfoot-packed earth, a few flat stones, a line of dew that breaks into pearls around your toes or your thin leather soles. Smoke turns the cold into a smell you recognize. Wood, wool, the hum of coals thinking about flame dot. There is no flush to summon, only the quiet logic of containers and habit. A bucket is emptied where it should be, a ditch shaped by years of understanding. Ash follows like a calm gray blanket, meant to settle and sweeten the moment. In towns, shutters open and someone calls a soft warning first, a word that walks ahead of the water, politely clearing space. Faces turn aside, brooms appear. The street receives and then forgets. In villages, distance does this part, and the hedgerow keeps secrets with steady leaves. Water is fetched, not commanded. The well holds its dark mirror. The rope creaks in a way you could recognize with your eyes closed. Down goes the bucket hollow, hopeful, and then the throat sound of water accepting it. You draw it up, arm and shoulder in an old agreement. the line damp and cool against your wrist. That first pour is for basins and hands. A scrap of tallow, soap, or a pinch of ash rubbed into the palm, and the skin tightens to clean. Drops patter the threshold and disappear into the patient dust. People announce, but not to offend, to warn, to care, to fold everyone into the same rhythm. A neighbor passes with a pail and studies the sky for a respectful second. A shawl is drawn closer. A child looks the other way because you once taught them it was kind. Dignity here is not made by doors, but by glances that step aside and then return. The path to the edge of the lane is a small river of usefulness. It bends where the ground is stubborn, widens where two can pass. A flat stone marks the soft place from last week's rain. Someone set it there before dawn. Someone else will move it when the sun dries the world. These changes need no orders. The village learns and quietly adjusts. Routines are shared the way the bell is shared. They belong to everyone and to no one. You take your turn and feel the line of turns before you and the line after, like beads moving through the same hand. In this, there is a comfort not much talked about, a sense that even the plainest acts pull thread through the fabric and keep it from fraying. Children come along with smaller buckets, important in their seriousness. They slosh and laugh and learn balance without lessons. Elders walk the same route with the pace they earned, pausing where the hedge makes a good resting wall. A nod passes between ages and says what words would clutter. You rinse the bucket and set it to dry with its mouth to the morning. The wet line travels slowly down the side, like a thought finding its end. Hands are wiped on wool. The cloth is hung where a thin breeze reads it. The hedge resumes its quiet watch, having seen everything and judged nothing. Perhaps you wonder, as you pour a last cup for the basin, when a routine becomes a ritual. Maybe it is exactly when it is shared, when one person calls a warning for many, when the well's echo answers every arm, when the path is kept by 100 careful feet. Plain tasks, unhurried, are how a place agrees to be a place. Breathe in, smoke and cold, and the iron taste of water. Breathe out, steam from your hands, frost leaving the doorframe, a little cloud that does not linger. Hear the hinge speak once. Hear the soft drag of the bucket's base across stone. Hear a voice you know say, all clear, and mean it not. And so this quiet morning ritual turns itself closed, as gently as it opened. The bucket waits in shade. The path forgets your footprints and keeps the shape of your walking. The well keeps its mirror. Somewhere, the bell gives a single patient note that thins into stillness. You return inside, unremarked and at ease, carrying the small order you made with water and care. Pottage and bread breakfast without hurry begins where the pot warms by embers. An iron moon holding yesterday and today in the same slow glow. You lift the lid. Steam rises in a quiet ribbon, smelling of grain and root and the kind of patience that doesn't need to be seen to be true dot inside. The pottage has thickened in the night. Barley has opened like small pearls. Oats have gone soft and forgiving. A turnip has lost its edge and found a sweetness that only time gives. Threads of leek have become silk. If a bone was there, it offered what it could, and now rests like a memory. You add a little water, not much, coaxing the story forward. A pinch of salt, if the pouch permits. Perhaps a dry leaf saved from summer, crumbled between your fingers, waking a faint green ghost of sunlit hedges. The spoon is wood worn thin at the lip, smoothed by circles you've made without counting. It taps the pot with a friendly knock. The pottage folds over itself and settles again with a soft, contented sigh. It is less a meal than a companion. The kitchen knows it. Your hands do too. Bread waits under a cloth, dark and sturdy. You tip the loaf, and from the bottom with your knuckles. A dull drum answers good. The knife presses, and the crust crackles. The crumb is moist and close. The heel goes to a hand that will carry weight. The soft center to the one with smaller teeth. Crumbs scatter on the board like pale seeds in winter. You gather them with your thumb and send them back to usefulness. A clay cup cools your palm. Small ale, weak and safe, holds a cloudy amber, the color of straw after rain. Brewed and boiled and friendly to the morning. You drink, and a mild warmth settles beneath the ribs. It is not a thrill. It is a reassurance. Water without worry. A swallow that makes room for breath. Bowls are set wooden, faithful, each with its small individuality. A nick at the rim, a darker patch where stew once taught it a lesson. You ladle the pottage. It lands with a soft weight, a slow spread, a curl of steam that draws everyone closer by instinct. The room makes its small music spoon on wood, spoon on clay, the faint sigh of a bench shifting under familiarity. Children lean in. Elders wrap hands around bowls first, warming fingers that have taught many mornings how to begin. Someone crosses themselves. Someone doesn't. Both are fine. A pinch of salt passes like a token. A mouthful of bread softens in the broth. The taste is honest rather than exciting. It says, "I will carry you." It means it. Spices are rare, so the tongue learns to read humbler notes, the bittersweet of parsnip, the grass of leek, the round comfort of grain. Fat, if there is any, shines in a small constellation. You tap it with the back of your spoon, and it folds into everything else. A quiet star becoming sky dot. The mind drifts while the body remembers how to eat without hurry. Chew steadily. Sip quietly. Feel warmth move outward into wrists and shoulders, into the place beneath your shoulder blades that always holds a little of yesterday. Fuel is an old word here. It is love in a plain coat. Perhaps you wonder how many rooms share this steam this morning. Beyond your wall, other hearts lift their slow breath. Other spoons knock. Other hands break the same kind of crust. Names are different. The rhythm is the same. A valley of ordinary beginnings, stitched together by bowls and breath. Someone laughs softly at nothing in particular. A child discovers the joy of dipping bread twice. The goat in the corner settles into a new angle and is satisfied with it. These are small mercies, and they count. When the bowl's empty, you leave a little in the pot, as always. Later needs a place to start. You add a trickle of water, give one more circle with the spoon, and let the embers keep their promise. The cloth returns to the loaf. The salt pouch closes. The cup sets down and leaves a pale ring that will disappear by noon. You wipe the ladle with the bread's last soft arc. A gentle thrift that tastes like gratitude. A wooden bowl is swirled with a handful of water and set aside to dry, its grain darkening, then lightening, then forgetting. Perhaps in that quiet moment, you feel the weight of time pressing gently against the heart. Not heavy, not sad, just present, like the warmth of the bowl in your hands a minute ago. Breakfast has not tried to dazzle you. It has steadied you. It has set your steps in the same measured key as the day outside. Listen, the spoon taps the rim once, a small farewell. The embers murmur in their low, orange language. Far off, a bell lets a single note fall and fade. You rise. The body says yes without words. Pottage and bread breakfast without hurry has done its work, and so will you. Dressing the part wool, linen, and bare feet begins with a small conversation between your fingers and the morning. The room is cool. Cloth waits where you left it, folded with more hope than crispness. The light has not learned to hurry yet. Clothes are tools, not declarations. One shift if fortune allowed the flax. One tunic if the sheep were kind. You lift the linen first. It is pale, honest, a little rough along the seams where a bone needle once tugged waxed thread through. The fabric whispers at your wrists. It itches, yes. It also forgives. Linen close to skin is a treaty. I will carry your sweat if you carry the day. Wool follows. The tunic keeps the memory of sheep and smoke, of hedges and hearths. A faint lanolin comfort clings to it, earthy and true. You slide it over your head. The cloth finds your shoulders like a path remembering your feet. Laces are simple cords, not buttons. Your hands tie them by feel, the knot living in muscle more than in thought. You smooth the seam that always rises a little at the shoulder. It settles, as if persuaded. A patch catches your eye, a square of darker, wool stitched neat and firm where the elbow wore thin from leaning and lifting. Another, small and clever, hides in the hem, cut from a cuff the winter insisted on shortening. Mending here is not shame. It is proof of staying. The tunic is a map of your work, inked in thread and thrift. A belt of wool braid or dark leather finds your waist. It carries your arrangements. A knife in its sheath, a pouch with a spare cord, a nail that might be important later. The belt is a measured promise. You will be useful. The day will ask. You will answer. When you move, the knife taps your hip with a quiet agreement. Shoes, perhaps. Thin leather, turned and stitched, obedient to the season. They are not fences between you and the earth. They are sentences that translate. You feel the pebble, the ridge, the cool damp where the lane kept the night. Or you go barefoot when the light says yes, and the path remembers your steps kindly. The ground greets you chill, then warms, and your toes learn the morning's mood. A hood or coif, a kerchief, a cap small roofs you carry with you. You pull one up, frame your face with its edge, and the day looks gentler through its border. An apron meets the tunic if the work will splash, catching the first stains so the wool can forget them. You run a horn comb through your hair. It catches, then slides. The broken tooth is familiar as a recurring song. Nearby, a thimble waits bone with a polish earned by long patience. A needle, threaded and stuck safe in a sleeve hem, rides where you can find it later. Mending is not an event here. It is a companion that sits beside you whenever you sit. Washing the garments asks for sun and arm in time. Buckets lifted. Ash coaxed to bite. Cloth wrung until the wrists complain and forgive. The line sags with the weight and stands again when wind has told its long story and left. Clean is not a finish line. It is a rhythm repeated like breath. You have little to choose and much to do, which makes choosing kind. The day's logic decides what you wear. Cold asks for an extra layer. Heat asks for mercy and less. Fine does not mean new. Fine means serviceable. The mirror is touch. Warmth against skin, weight on shoulders, a sleeve that lifts without talk. You adjust the belt one finger tighter. You settle the tunic so it hangs free at the hips. Your hands rest on your thighs, then fall to your sides. The cloth has already begun to learn you again. It holds a part of your warmth and shares it back without fuss. Perhaps you wonder whether fashion comes at all to rooms like these. It does, but it arrives as color from a pot and leaves as a faded memory on a cuff. It lives in a tidy seam, a smart patch, a hood stitched with a quiet curve that sits better on the brow. Beauty here is usefulness done, so well it looks like care. The latch waits for your fingers. The air beyond is older than comfort and just as kind, if you step into it with patience. You draw a breath. Wool, linen, and bare feet, 3 small truths sufficient. The door opens. The fabric rustles like a field waking. And you, dressed to be a person among tasks, pass into the light that will carry you, stitch by stitch, through the day. Smiles without dentistry are quieter things kept with twigs, rinses, and patience, not light and mirrors. You lean over a wooden basin, let cool water find your mouth, and swish the sleep away. The sound is small, a private brook. Your lips stay soft. Your jaw remembers not to clench. The day nods. A twig waits on the sill. Hazel, maybe willow. You pare one end with your knife and chew it until fibers bloom. A tiny brush in the shape of your intent. Wood tastes green, then pale, then only clean. The bristles meet tooth and gum with slow circles. Along the back, where bread worked hardest. Along the front, where words are made. You rinse, spit, and the yard accepts the offering without commentary. There is ash in a small dish and a pinch of salt. You wet the twig's tip and touch it lightly in the gray. The ash holds yesterday's heat. The salt holds a distant ocean. Together, they polish a modest shine. No mint, no sting, only the comfort of simple things doing what they know. Sometimes there is wine thinned with water, or a little vinegar softened in a cup. Sourness steps in where sweetness never lived. You swish and feel it clear the corners. If there is no wine, there is water, and if there is no water yet, there is waiting, which has its own cleanliness. Mouths tell stories here. Bread is coarse, milled on stone, that leaves a few stars of grit to write their slow message across enamel. You can read a life by the edges, a chip earned from a careless ladder, a gap left by winter, a smoothness from years of chewing work into swallowable size. Teeth are not promises. They are tools with hours logged and handles worn. When ache comes, and it does, it arrives like weather. A throb behind the cheekbone. A sharpness when a crumb says the wrong word. You answer with what you have. Sage steeped in hot water. Willow bark if luck or trade brought some. A cloth warmed at the hearth and held against the jaw until heat unties the knot. Honey and salt, carefully, for a stubborn sore. A quiet prayer, perhaps not to heaven so much as to endurance. If the ache stays, you go to the barber, who trims hair and tends hurts under the same roof. His room smells of lather and iron and wool that came in out of rain. Tools sleep in a leather roll. He opens it with neat hands. He speaks less than his scissors. A stool by the window, light like water. A look that measures, not judges. Sometimes the tooth must leave, the simplest ending offered by a steady wrist. A cloth, a pause, a nod, and then the world outside goes on with its carts and hens, as if endings were one more chore among chores. There are charms people keep without announcing. A small bead, a line of words half remembered, a touch to the door lintel where someone once scratched a mark and then never mentioned it again. Remedy and ritual sit side by side like two old neighbors on the same bench. Neither laughs at the other. Children learn by imitation. A twig becomes a flute between strokes. A rinse becomes a game of keeping water in until a giggle breaks it. Elders work slowly, resting fingers, gathering patience like twine. In between, most of us tend our mouths the way we tend the hearth. A few minutes each day. No applause expected, just the small pride of order made and kept. Let the idea of modern medicine recede like a far shoreline. There, but distant. Here, there is habit. There is carefulness. There is the way your jaw loosens when you remember, and the way breath smooths when pain begins to trust your calm. Do smiles keep time? Perhaps they do. Not in dates and names, but in the way lips learn to lift even when teeth are fewer, even when a molar hums a little thunder. A smile is a lantern you can hold that does not ask for oil. It lights faces from within, making enamel less important than intention. You hang the cloth to dry, lay the twig where noon will find it, and pour the basin's water where the earth drinks without fuss. The sour trace fades from your mouth, leaving only simple clean. Your lips are soft. Your jaw has forgotten to argue. The barber's door, the sage in the cup, the ash on the dish, all of them belong to the same quiet promise. We will care for what we can reach. And so you do. You shape your mouth around a greeting and send it gently into the room. The day answers back with the hush of wool and the low talk of coals. Smiles without dentistry survive on this. Attention, patience, and the tender decision to show kindness with whatever tools are at hand. Sunrise to sunset, the work of staying alive begins, when the sky loosens its first knot of darkness and spills a pale thread over the hedge. Light finds the gate, then the handle of your tool, then your hands. The chill considers you, and then steps back. Polite and lingering dot fieldwork follows the sky as faithfully as birds do. You lift a hoe from its hook, the wood warm where yesterday's grip remained. A scythe leans like a quiet thought. Iron glints thinly at the edges, not proud, just ready. Tools are simple wood, iron, and patience, and they wait without complaint, already knowing the day got out in the rows. Earth is dark with night's last dew. Your boots leave a line of temporary certainty. Pinch, drop, cover. Seeds vanish like secrets, shared with a good listener. A rake gathers stones into a small cairn at the row's end, a mountain scaled by patient fingers. Weeds come free with a soft sigh, roots offering up their small hold on the world. You set them aside in a tidy pile, a small ceremony of removal and respect. Inhale. The air is metal cool and damp with morning. Exhale. Watch your breath dissolve into the hour. Let the day begin around you. Unhurried and UNCURPR. ICD.water is drawn, not delivered. Rope hums against wood, a sound the well has learned to sing. The bucket drops into its own echo, meets the surface, and returns, heavy and honest. You shoulder the weight like an old friend. Pour at each young tree, the soil darkening to chocolate, a sweet scent climbing and loosening the chest. If a drop splashes your ankle, it cools and then forgets. You mend what must not fail. A fence leans where winter argued too long. A stake is urged into the ground with your weight and a steady heel. Twine wraps rough against skin. The knot you tie lives in your hands rather than your mind. It holds because it was made without doubt. The rhythm is plain and good. Lift, place, step, rest, pull, shake, stack, carry. The body learns it faster than the brain does. Motion repeats until thought grows smooth, like stones rolled by a river. The field does not ask for brilliance. It asks for presence and kindness, and the sort of attention that doesn't draw attention to itself. Every few minutes, we pause, inhale, exhale. Let the lark stitch its invisible song overhead while you stand, and listen to the wind combing the barley. Clouds move at a pace that refuses to be measured. The mind softens its grip. Children make work into play and play into work. A small one gathers fallen apples with the gravity of a judge. Another chases a hen and learns quickly that guiding is easier than catching. They copy how you hold the hoe so it skims rather than bites. They copy the way you say nothing when something heavy asks for both hands. Across the lane, the world holds its own steady notes. A hammer in the smithy rings clear as a bell made of iron. The loom in the cottage sighs foot, shuttle, footcloth climbing the beam stitch by patient stitch. The tannery steams. Bark and water whisper their slow recipe for toughness. All these sounds are the same work in different clothes, staying alive together dot by midday. Shade is a kind idea. You sit on a low wall and eat without drama. Bread, a slice of onion, a mouthful of yesterday's pottage warmed again, a sip of weak ale, cool from a corner the sun hasn't reached. Conversation is a net with big holes cloud shape, calf due soon, a wheel that will need the smith. No one hurries to fill the silences. They are useful spaces where breath can stretch. Then back to it. The sun climbs, and so do the half-shadows. You pull the last weeds from between the cabbages, admiring their stubborn geometry. You carry a bundle of kindling that ticks softly against your leg. You lift a sack of grain and feel your body become a lever, bone, and will in agreement. The work keeps time with the moving light and asks for nothing more than you have. Inhale. The air is warmer now, a little dusty with pollen and effort. Exhale. Let the sweat cool you, a small river that knows its path. Allow thoughts to pass like crows across a wide sky. They can land if they must. They can keep going as afternoon tilts. Shadows lengthen into rulers laid across the path. They measure the distance to evening better than any clock. You return tools to their places. Iron is wiped and touched with a little oil if fortune has given you some. Wood is brushed of earth and laid on hooks. The rope coils into a dry, obedient circle. The gate clicks shut with a note you recognize as home-got animals receive you like old friends who waited without fuss. The goat gives milk with a brief argument, and then a forgiving sigh. Hens announce their eggs as if inventing the news. The cow leans her warmth into your hands, her breath a meadow made of steam. You close the latch, and the day draws inward, softer at the edges. Sunset brings a slow cooling of colors. Gold slips to copper, copper to ash blue. The church bell speaks once, then again steady, unsentimental. You wash soil from your hands in a basin. Turn the water with your fingers. Watch the dirt become a brown cloud, and then nothing at all. Your palms are mapped with small red crescents and a line of twine's memory. These are signatures the day leaves in lieu of letters. Perhaps you wonder whether the land keeps a ledger of such efforts, or if it only remembers how gently or roughly it was asked to yield. Maybe the work remembers you instead, stored in the handle's shine, the smooth part of the fence where your forearm always rests. Like all things, it passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of centuries turning over in their sleep. The last birds trade places with the first bats. The field fades into one wide, kind shape. Inhale once more. The air is cool and forgiving. Exhale and let the day move around you into night. Sunrise to sunset, the work of staying alive has done what it always does. It quieted your thoughts and steadied your heart. You step inside with the dusk and carry that stillness like a lantern that asks for no oil at all. Weather without walls is how a house learns to breathe, with the seasoned winter drafts finding every seam, summer heat warming every beam. You feel it before you name it. Air moves like a guest who never remembers to knock. The hut does not resist so much as accommodate in winter. The wind discovers new paths as if it were learning the room. It slides under the door, tests the join where wattle meets timber, fingers the chinks where last year's moss is thinned. Frost writes on the latch with a careful hand. Your breath makes a brief ghost and vanishes. Firewood is precious. Each stick is a decision. You feed coals the way you feed a tired friend. Enough to keep them, not enough to make them dance. A shawl goes over shoulders. A cap settles at the brow. Mitts stitched from old wool remember other winters and cooperate. You place your chair a hand's width closer to the hearth, and then another. Drafts become maps you can read with skin. A line along the floor, a small river around the window frame, a whisper around your ankles asking for straw to be tucked there. A hanging cloth by the door grows heavy with the season and works like a second, softer door. The house does its part. You do yours. Inhale. The air is smoke and iron cold. Exhale. Let the ribs drop in the room. Ease itself back into place. You bank the fire at night. Pull ash over ember like a blanket, trusting the dull red to remember morning. Children and cousins sleep closer, warmth becoming a shared language. A stone warmed at the hearth slips into the bed's foot and gives up its heat slowly, like a secret told to the right person. The goat drifts nearer the inside wall, claiming a pocket where the draft forgets to go. The door stays cracked just enough to listen to the bell if it speaks, to the hooves on frozen lane, to the sky holding its breath. Spring loosens the house stitch by stitch. Meltwater ticks from the thatch and finds the same bucket it always finds. You learn the smell of thaw-wet earth, damp wood swelling, wool giving back a little of what it carried. Breeze arrives with mud on its boots and is forgiven. You open a shutter the width of your thumb, then the width of your palm, and air treads the interior like a polite newcomer. Then summer. Heat stores itself in timber and travels back out in slow waves. The beams hum quietly with warmth. Thatch grows its own weather of insects and soft, distant buzz. Shade is wisdom. A bench is moved by inches, following the arc of comfort along the wall. The door stands wide. A stick holds the shutter at just the right angle to pinch a breeze. Rushes on the floor are dampened and laid fresh, and the house smells briefly of river. You rest a cool cloth at the throat. A jug lives in the deepest shadow near the chest to keep its. Water from learning the sun too quickly. Inhale. Air is grass-sweet and lazy. Exhale. Let. The shoulders fall and the day widen. Fields and courtyards arrange themselves to the same rules. Work begins early, when light is kind, and retreats to shade when it grows insistent. A cap becomes a small private roof. Cloth becomes a geography you redraw as the day goes on, sleeves rolled, then unrolled, apron added, then lifted, shawl laid aside, then returned when the evening remembers to be chill. The body is the first house. You learn to arrange it around the season like furniture. Autumn folds the heat back into the ground. Damp rises. You feel it in the knees, in the way wood grows heavy and refuses the flame's first request. Firewood stacks become sentences you read with a glance. Enough for a while, not enough for waste. Doors lose their memory of staying open and swing shut of their own accord. You tie them back with string and a quiet suggestion. Outside, the bell keeps time as the sun shortens its stride. Inside, you tuck cords and cloth into every draft you can reach and leave the rest to the good manners of fate. Do walls keep weather out, or do they simply teach us how to meet it? Maybe a house is a translator turning wind into a thin line along the floor, turning heat into a slow wave from the beam, so that living can continue in a tone that doesn't raise its voice. Maybe the door cracked just enough is the truest kind of listening, the kind that lets the world speak its part without moving you from your chair. Inhale. Count the quiet you've made. Exhale. Let it stay. When evening comes, winter or summer, the room receives the change first. In winter, the draft turns colder and tells you. In summer, the heat loosens its grip and leaves a kindness behind. You draw the shawl closer or fold it away. You tip the door a fraction more closed or a fraction more open. The fire answers with a small shift of orange, or an ember gives one dark red blink and settles. Outside, a bell or an owl, steady and unsentimental. Inside, the house breathes in your rhythm. Weather without walls does not argue. It invites arrangements. It makes you a partner in comfort, rather than a customer of it. And as you slip towards sleep, the door still cracked that patient finger's width. The season continues its slow conversation with the beans and the straw in your steady breath. Nothing urgent, everything understood. Water, baths, and beliefs arrive in the same wooden bucket bright as a stream looks, careful as a hand that knows better. The lane's water runs like polished glass, but the village has learned its stories. Caution is common. People boil, brew, and bless. A kettle sings before a cup is safe. A cross is traced over a jug, not as magic exactly, but as company. In the yard, the well holds its dark mirror. Rope hums. The bucket drops and finds its echo. When it returns, the weight pulls at your shoulder with a polite insistence. Water goes to many fates. Into a pot for pottage, into a tun for brewing, into a kettle whose thin lip will soon speak steam. Small ale weak and trustworthy becomes morning's answer to thirst. Children sip it and grow on it without fanfare. Bathing is occasional and full of opinion. The wooden tub appears like a ceremony, slid from its corner with a steady scrape, set near the hearth where brick keeps old warmth in it. Screens go up hurdles and cloths arranged to make a room within the room. Privacy here is less about. Walls that about attention turned away, sleeves lifted, voices softened. A fire is coaxed toward cheerful. Kettles take their positions, black bellies filling with cold. Steam begins as a whisper, then a veil. Someone tests the first pour with a wrist. Another adds a ladle from a bucket still cool. Temper is a word for steel and for water both. The tub becomes a small pond, made and unmade in an afternoon. Soap, if there is some, is tallow and ash with the ghost scent of last winter's rosemary. If not, there is sand for stubborn places and a cloth well rinsed. Hair leans into warmth and lets go of yesterday. Feet, tired from honest ground, unlearn their ache for a while. Laughter happens in pieces quiet, private, a relief at seeing steam carry, worry up toward the thatch where it will disappear. Even here, beliefs bob like apples in the same barrel. Some say too much soaking steals strength. Others swear by a hot tub when the chill has settled in the bones. A mother tells a child not to rush the rinse. A grandmother says not too long in the water, you'll catch the air wrong. The midwife has her own ways for the weary or the new, for fevers that need persuading, and for skin that wants a kinder day. None of this is law. It is what the house agrees on for now. Town has its baths too, if your purse can meet them hot. Rooms, steam, quick talk, each place with its own reputation. Some blessed, some frowned at, all of them social. In the countryside, ceremony does fine in a wooden ring. Tonight the tub glows like a small moon, round and patient, surrounded by kettles like dark planets in service. A line forms without being called. Elders first on a cold night. The water, deepened and warmed again, before a child slips in, squeaking at the surprise, and then sighing. You lower yourself last, groan a little, laugh at your own groan, and arrange knees and elbows until comfort happens. The heat climbs your spine and writes its name behind the shoulders. Where work usually keeps its notes dot between pores, small rituals take their turns. A sprig of mint rubbed between forefinger and thumb, dabbed at the neck. A bead worried between two fingers while steam makes its soft promises. A single sweet saved for after, to remind the mouth that not everything in life is practical. Blessings are stitched through it all. A sign over the water, a murmured thanks to hands that carried, to wood that burned, to patience that kept a kettle from tipping. When enough is enough, you stand and the air feels new on skin. Towels are not thick, but wool knows how to dry, how to warm by agreeing with the body instead of arguing. Screens are angled to give a path for retreat and a view of nothing that matters. The tub cools by slow degrees. The last kettle pours. Its final kindness, a thin ribbon that becomes instantly a memory. Wastewater goes to a patch of ground that doesn't mind being useful. Soap bubbles burst into silence. The tub is tipped and drips like a brief rain. It is wiped, lifted, and returned to its corner to become an ordinary circle of wood again. The kettle mouths darken, quiet, and lean on their hooks. The hearth, satisfied, settles its orange eye to a thoughtful blink. Streams look bright, But the village trusts what has been made safe by heat, by brewing, by blessing. Bathing feels like a holiday the house throws when time allows, full of steam and opinion, laughter and good manners pretending to be walls. Between such ceremonies, there is the everyday clean. Hands at the basin, face in the cool. A quick rinse at the well, a cloth hung where air reads it dry dot. Do we wash away the day, or do we only teach it where to rest on the floorboards? In the bucket, in the ash? Perhaps both. Perhaps the body is ashore and water just keeps visiting, smoothing what it cannot listen. The last drop ticks from the tub's rim. The kettle sighs once, then forgets. Night spreads its darker thread across the rafters. You pull the screen aside, and the room returns to one room again. The air smells of steam, of clean wool, of a little rosemary that thinks of summer. You breathe in that memory, breathe out the day's grit, and let the house cool around a center made warm by care. The four humors balancing the body. Sounds like a quiet song the village already knows. A tune of warm and cool, wet and dry, sung beneath the breath. Health is harmony. Blood and phlegm, yellow bile and black bile, each with its season, each with its weather inside you dot. When cheeks burn and thoughts run sharp, they say choler that bright, hot temper has climbed. Too high. Bitter herbs answer it. A sprig of wormwood, a sip of sage, a cool cloth at the brow. Bread is dipped in thin broth, not fat. A shaded stool replaces a sunny one. When the chest grows heavy and steps slow, when mornings take longer to start, they whisper of phlegm cold and damp. Then time is set to steam in a cup. A shawl is wrapped closer. Feet rest on warm stone, and sleep is asked to stay a little longer. If sadness settles like a coat you can't shrug off, the old word is melancholy. Black bile leaning the scales. The remedy is gentler than it sounds. Roast apples with honey, a walk where the lane gathers birdsong, rosemary in the window, music that knows how to talk to the heart without using words. And when the pulse is full and skin pale, when the head rings and the world tilts, blood is said to be unruled. Then come broths, quiet days if the day will permit them, and sometimes carefully, calmly the barber surgeon with a bowl and a strip of linen, doing just enough to ease the tide. He says little. The window light is steady. The work is as solemn as bread. A midwife holds another kind of balance. She keeps warm stones by the fire and oils scented with garden hope. She knows the rhythm of breathing and the singing of chords that need to loosen. She sets a baby into the world as if setting a cup carefully on a table that must not be bumped. When weakness follows, she pours fennel tea, tucks blankets into the right angles, and tells the room not to speak too loudly. Prayers sit among these remedies like small, respectful stools. A candle is lit and moved from sill to bedside the way. The sun moves along the beam. A saint's name is said softly: Cosmas, Damien, Apollonia, if teeth complain more, as companionship than command. A charm may hang from a peg for a while, and then be forgotten there when the fever leaves, the way a tool is left where it last did good. Sometimes the barber holds a clear glass to the window and tips a small sample to the light, reading cloud and color the way a shepherd reads weather in the hedge. Sometimes the stars are consulted. If the moon is waning, perhaps wait. If the day is ruled by heat, cool. These are not certainties so much as manners the body appreciates, signs that someone is paying attention to its quiet language. Diets are careful when they can be. In heat, cooling greens. In cold, barley stewed long. A piece of fat if there is any to be had, the kind that makes hands steadier. Garlic for courage, mint for a restless belly. Chamomile when the mind refuses to. Untie. Rest is a physician everyone believes in, though work seldom invites him to visit. So neighbors rearrange the day to make a little chair for him by your bed. A cousin takes your turn at the well. A friend mends the fence that could not wait. Someone leaves a loaf and forgets to mention it. You notice how much of care is community, and how much community is simply the habit of noticing. There are failures, of course nights that do not break at the first bell, aches that sit there, tent for longer than anyone wished. Even then, the village does what it can. A seat nearer the hearth, a cloak added to a shoulder that will not warm, a story told more slowly than usual, so the words do not jostle the listener. The scale may not level, but the hands around it grow steadier. Are we weather inside skin? Perhaps. Are these 4 humor seasons that pass through us, asking for herbs and shade, for warmth and patience? The house seems to think so, with its screens and shawls, its kettles, its quiet stools. Balance here is a verb, not a prize, a daily arranging of diet and breath, of prayer and poultice, of laughter saved for the right moment. Listen to the room when evening comes. The kettle hums low. A cup cools in the hand. The pulse in the wrist slows to agree with the light. Outside, a bell speaks without hurry, and then allows silence to finish the sentence. You turn on your side, careful of the tender places. The body, convinced by community and time, nudges its way back toward the middle, and in that gentle settling, remedies and hope, barber surgeons, midwives, and prayers share the work once more, until sleep closes the door with a soft and certain click. Supper, salt, onions, and a little celebration begins when the pot leans closer to the embers and the day loosens its grip. The room gathers itself around warmth. Steam climbs in thin ribbons, carrying the quiet promise of enough. Onions speak. First, their sweetness arrives from a long cook, not a sudden flame. You slice them with care, the knife ticking the board like a soft metronome. A sliver of fat, if the week allowed, melts and disappears with a shy shine. Roots join parsnip. A turnip resigned to kindness thickening the stew until the spoon stands and then remembers its manners. Bread waits under cloth, dark and sturdy, ready to be softened in the broth and become tender without complaint. Salt is precious, set aside like treasure. A small pinch from a horn or pouch, lifted as if it were light caught between fingers. You scatter it with respect, watch it vanish, and know the whole pot will remember. Most flavor here is time. The rest is work. Bowls come forward, wooden and warm where palms have learned them. The bench creaks as bodies find their places in a pattern older than worry. Someone shifts closer to the hearth. Someone else draws the screen a finger's width. Against the draft, the fire adjusts itself, one log giving way to another, coals brightening with a soft breath. The room listens and settles. You ladle the stew. It lands in each bowl with a quiet heft, a single slow wave. The bread follows, a heel for the hands that lifted the most, a softer middle for small teeth and older mouths. The spoons first. Dip is steam and patience. The second is comfort. Taste is honest rather than exciting, the flavor of doing and waiting and doing again. A pinch of the precious is passed to wake a quarter of a bowl. The pouch comes back lighter and still enough. A jug of small ale circles, weak and safe, with the faint bite that means it has been boiled and will do no harm. You drink and feel warmth, goes on doing its small work, one rib at a time. On feast days, a richer smell lifts the room and makes every eye bright without meaning to. A strip of bacon saved from a better market day, a bone with marrow that blesses. The whole pot, a handful of dried herbs crumbled in from a cloth. Perhaps there is a pie brought by a neighbor, more proud of the crust than of what it holds. Laughter sits nearer the surface then, and the fire looks like it is in on the secret. Even the goat in the corner raises his head as if he suspects. Something good is happening. Most nights, celebration is smaller. It is the sound of a spoon scraping the last sure bite from the edge of a bowl. It is the way someone reaches to refill another's cup before refilling their own. It is a story, told softly enough that it doesn't wake the sleeping child on the pallet by the door. This is what plenty looks like when it is humble, warm and not hungry, close and unafraid of silence. Perhaps, in that quiet moment, you feel the weight of time pressing gently against the heart. Not heavy, just present. The stew you eat tonight tastes like many nights before and will taste like many nights after. In that sameness is a permission to rest. History, here, is a second helping offered with a smile that knows tomorrow will need you too. The onion braid sways a little in the heat that gathers along the rafters. The salt pouch returns to its shelf, a small moon in a dim corner. Bread, crumbs wait on the board like tiny stars that will be brushed into tomorrow's pot. Dishes are rinsed with a handful of water, the grain of the wood darkening and lightening, then forgetting. The hearth blinks golden, then lower, orange under gray. Outside, the bell may speak once, unsentimental, on time with the sun. Inside, chairs shift back a hand's width, a knee is stretched, a shoulder lets go. Someone mends a cuff in the last of the light. Someone hums a tune without meaning to. A child's head slides toward a lap and finds it. The fire adjusts itself again, a quiet negotiation between what has burned and what will. You sit close and listen to that conversation pop. Sigh, the soft fall of ash. The room returns your warmth to you in slow, patient echoes. You touch the cup to the table and feel the small knock that says, enough got like all things. It passed. Not with thunder, but with a sigh the sound of centuries turning over in their sleep. You draw the cloth over the loaf, tie the salt tight, set the spoon where you will find it in the morning. The coals dim to a thoughtful red. The air cools by a breath. Most nights, this is all that is asked. To be warm and not hungry, to be near and unhurried, to let the day end as softly as it began. Bells, saints, and the calendar of faith arrange. The week like a quiet loom threads of sound and candlelight, weaving work, rest, and holy days into one steady cloth. The bell speaks first. It does not ask. It reminds. Morning belongs to prayer, and then to fields. You walk toward the small church at the village center, its tower like a patient finger set against the sky. The door is thick and wood-sweet. Inside, the air is cool and smells of stone and beeswax, of damp earth carried in by shoes and then forgiven. Candles give shape to darkness, their flames wobbling like small, stubborn stars. Latin words drift. Like music, you do not need to understand to feel, syllables rising and falling the way breathing does. You bow because everyone bows. You kneel because the knees beside you have learned the floor, and your body wants to belong. Reverence here is habit more than thunder. It is a posture that remembers the heart before the mind does. A mother folds her hands. A child copies, peeking at the light through his fingers. The priest's voice reaches the rafters and shakes. A little dust free, and the dust becomes gold, and the candlelight days are named by the saints as much as by the sun. Saints' days lift the village a finger's width off the ground. A new loaf baked, a ribbon saved for hair. A small story retold about a miracle that arrived shy and then stayed. Fasts narrow the table with purpose, and no one complains out. Loud, fish when it is time for fish. A lean pot when it is time to remember hunger with tenderness. Feast days widen the table until it looks like gratitude. The bell tells you which is which dot outside the church. The calendar is not written, so much as worn. Markets solve themselves around holy days, like water around a stone. Fields pause for a morning or an afternoon, not to stop life, but to let it breathe in another key. A procession moves along the lane, slow and careful, marking boundaries that Way a hand marks a page. Banners stir a little in the wind. The cross leads, and the village follows, each step the length of a prayer. Inside, the hours are folded into one another. Dawn and dusk are cousins. The bell divides the day and holds it together. It gathers births, marriages, worries. It tolls. For the dead, in a tone the whole place recognizes with the body before the ear admits it. And for new life, it laughs lighter, quicker pulling smiles even from tired faces. The bell is the village heart that lives in the tower because hearts prefer heights. Saints whisper from wood and paint. A figure at the side altar carries a book, a sword, a wheel, a child symbols that say this one knows about your trouble. You leave a coin if you can, a sprig of rosemary if you cannot. The wax beneath the statue has pooled and cooled and pooled again, a soft landscape of hope hardened into shape. Your fingers touch the stone ledge where countless other fingers have polished it, smooth as memory. Warm as agreement. Latin continues like rain at a distance. The priest lifts, signs, and lowers. His gestures are familiar enough to predict, but new enough to watch. You catch a word dominus, pax, ora, and hold it like a pebble in your pocket. Not because you are learned, because carrying something. Small and good is the way most journeys begin. You bow again, not because doctrine presses, but because your body has learned that bending is a kind of relief. Your neighbor's shoulder bumps yours as he stands, a gentle collision that says we are here together, flawed, hopeful, ordinary. Outside, the bell repeats itself. Children race its echoes across the yard. Geese disapprove and settle. The week has its tide. Wash on a Monday, markets on a set day that always seems to arrive on time, mending and resting within the frame of the Sabbath, when tools take their own kind of breath. On such days, work leans back and watches you. You walk slower, without deciding to. The pot simmers anyway. The hens go on conducting their little governance. Rest is not empty. It is full of being allowed in the dim of evening. Candles make islands of kindness across the church floor. The last notes of a hymn float upward and become part of the timber. The doorwood cools beneath your palm as you leave, and the sky has already thickened to parchment blue. A shawl is lifted. A hood is tied. The lane takes your feet where they have always gone. Do the saints watch? Do the bells sleep? Perhaps they simply keep company, so that no hour has to be alone, and no house has to invent comfort from nothing. The calendar is a wide net. It catches you gently and returns you to yourself, improved by the holding. And so, beneath the same stars we see tonight, they carried on unaware. They were becoming history. The bell gives one more note, thin as thread, and lets it fade into the dark. You bow once in your mind, a habit now, and turn toward home, the path already answering with its familiar hush. Women's hands, children's tasks, this is how the house keeps time. Stitch by stitch, stick by stick, from the first sound of the bell to the last hush of the hearth. The room is a workshop made of warmth and will. Wool in a basket. Thread on a bone bobbin. A distaff tucked under an elbow like a tame branch. Spin first. The spindle hums with a small, sure gravity. Fingers tease wool into a long breath of fiber. Pull, twist, release. Pull, twist, release. The thread grows like a slow vine climbing toward use. When it breaks, no one startles. Moisten, rejoin, continue. The day knows how to forgive small separations. Stitching weights in a neat bundle shirt's kneading cuffs. A sleeve turned to expose the stubborn seam. The needle bites and gives, bites, and gives, soothed by the thimble's soft tap. Patches sit square and honest, cut from hems that once were longer, from pieces saved for this very moment. A child watches from a bench. eyes following the thread's quiet argument with the cloth. A small hand is guided to pull one stitch, then another, proud of the straight line he created, even if it wavers. Tending folds itself around everything. Else, the pot must be stirred. Bread must be checked, pressed with 2 fingers to read its answer. Herbs are tied in patient bundles near the rafter sage, mint, a little rosemary, for days that ask to remember summer. A baby is rocked with a foot while both hands work. Water is fetched because it never arrives on its own. The door is opened with the hip, and a bucket sets down with the round thud that belongs to well-dazed teaching happens in gestures more than in words. A hand places a child's grip higher on the broom. A chin tilts toward the drier path outside. A finger taps the back of a knife to say here, not there. Praise is a sideways smile. Correction is a second demonstration. The mind learns without heat. The body stores the steps for later, when the same broom will be heavier and the same path longer. Children carry kindling and small tools, useful and proud. A little one wraps yarn in a figure 8 around elbow and thumb and calls it very important. Work, which, of course, it is. Another minds the geese with a stick he never needs to use, only to show. Pockets collect treasures that will not stay long. A button, a feather, a nail that might fix the world. By dusk, their heads tilt toward sleep in sudden angles, foreheads smudged with ash, hair smelling faintly of bread and smoke. Women's hands move between strong and delicate, between weight and detail, as easily as the breath moves. Butter is churned, and the shoulder learns the rhythm it requires. Linen is scrubbed against a board until foam like a field of little clouds gathers and then passes. Then the same hands thread a needle with a filament, so fine it remembers spiderwork. Warmth is kept, edges are mended. Time is persuaded to behave. The day is shared fairly or unfairly, but always shared. Some burdens are light, only because many fingers lift them. Some stay heavy and are simply borne, with a joke soft enough not to bruise anyone, with a look that says I see, with a seat offered without being named kindness. Work flows to the spot where it is needed, not always wisely, often well enough in. The corners, the tools rest in families. Cards lean with combs. Spindles dream beside hanks of yarn. The mending basket keeps a small parliament of scissors, chalk, pins. The house knows where everything lives and nudges the hand toward the right. Place when the mind would forget. Order here is not strict. It is affectionate. Outside, weather changes its mind. Inside, the rhythm holds. The spindle pauses when the kettle sings, resumes when silence finds its place again. The needle sleeps in the hem while bread is sliced, wakes to finish its line before the light thins. A child returns with an armful of sticks and a story about a crow. The story grows over the sticks and gets carried in with them. Evening braids the room into one piece. Yarn is wound one last loop. The broom finds its corner. A small head nods, then nests against a sleeve. The latch lowers. Steam makes luminous threads in the last slant of sun. Someone hums without noticing, and the tune hangs like a ribbon from the beam. Perhaps you wonder if history remembers the names of the ones who spun. Stitched, tended, taught, often not, but the cloth remembers their patience. The seams remember their neatness. The kindling caught fire more quickly because those small arms carried it home. This is how the centuries warmed themselves. Like all things, the day passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the soft sound of thread settling in a basket, of embers adjusting their red. Women's hands, children's tasks, all finished for now. Sleep leans close. The house breathes with you, and the work, shared as it was, shares its quiet with the night, keeping the peace. Rules and remedies feels less like iron law and more like a well-worn path set by feet that knew where to put themselves. Customs travel ahead of courts. They carry the village between the hedges. Of good sense, one careful step at a time. A fence post leans into a neighbor's turnips. A pig learns the taste of someone else's cabbages. A borrowed sickle is late to come home. These are the small storms that pass through a place. First comes talk under the elm, near the well, at the edge of the field where the soil keeps secrets. Voices stay low. An elder tilts a chin. A hand sweeps the air in a rough diagram of compromise. Finds here are not thunder. They are eggs, a measure of grain, a small coin when a small coin can be spared. Sometimes they are labor, which is the finest currency of all. You mend the fence you leaned on too hard. You carry water for the one who lost a morning because of you. You bake a loaf and bring it warm. A silent oath with a crust. Oaths, when needed, rise like careful bridges over muddy ground. A palm on the church door's iron ring. Eyes lowered to a candle's small fire. Words spoken with plain dignity. Not to impress, but to anchor. Neighbors stand near companion swearers, their own names lending steadiness to yours. Not because they are certain, because belonging shares its weight. The reeve keeps a tally stick, not a sword. He cuts a notch, and the wood remembers for him. The constable walks the lane with watchful kindness, more shepherd than guard. Village opinion matters like weather. It moves around you even when you do not see it. A nod here, a delayed greeting there. Approval warms a room quicker than firewood. Disapproval cools it even in summer dot. If temper lifts too high, the ale bench accepts it first. A pint and a pause. A friend clears his throat and says less than he means. Later, an apology finds its way by the simplest pathbread wrapped in. Cloth, a fence straightened, a word repaired. Most troubles shrink when touched with two steady hands. Serious matters travel elsewhere, to the manor or the town. There, decisions feel heavy and final. A steward's table, worn by elbows and law. Parchment that crackles like brown leaves. A quill's thin scratch that makes argument into record. 12 neighbors swear to see and say true. You feel the room itself has corners that do not move. Tonight, we let the harsher edges blur and pass by. We will not count the penalties out loud. We will only hear the distant bell, which sounds the same before and after dot. Between village and hall runs a thread of promise called peace. Sometimes it is written. Sometimes it is simply understood. Keep the night quiet. Keep the path open. Keep your anger tied to a small post until daylight helps you loosen it. Break that promise, and the whole place leans to lift its weight gently when it can, firmly when it must. Remedies live in hands. A hedge replanted where a shortcut shaved the field. A footbridge laid across the ditch that caught a neighbor's. Cart, a roof patched by 4 ladders and a dozen quiet jokes. Teaching a boy to set a proper knot so he will not untie someone else's by mistake. These are judgments that leave no bruise, sentences that end with better mornings dot in the church. Porch, where rain speaks in drops, someone lays a hand on a shoulder, and the argument cools a degree. In the lane at dusk, a woman carries a lantern for a neighbor who walks home slower than she used to. In a house where a door has slammed, a child is sent to fetch water and returns to a room that has remembered itself. Peace is not a statute. It is a practice. Perhaps the truest court sits in the space between ref and reply. The village knows this. It pauses more often than it pronounces. It trusts time to sand the sharper corners off a grievance. It trusts shared work to teach people how to fit again, like boards that stop creaking once the house learns them dot, and so the day settles. The tally stick is tied with its mate and put away. The door to the manor closes on its own echo. In the cottages, latches drop. The fire adjusts itself. and forgets the height of the flame it held at noon. A final word is said at the threshold and does not need to be said again. Like all things, it passed, not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of centuries turning. Over in their sleep, customs have done their quiet work. Remedies have taken the shape of eggs, of labor, of bread, of hands. The village, opinion and oath and small coin, keeps its peace by keeping one another. You inhale, feeling the room soften. You exhale, letting the harsher edges blur and pass by. The night accepts the offering and grows still. Nightfall turns a short life into a long evening, stretching the hours like warm wool until they cover what the day could not. The light thins to copper. The bell gives one last patient note, and the village exhales. Mortality is close, but so is family. The room gathers itself. A candle is coaxed to life. Its small flame writes soft thoughts on the rafters. The fire folds into ember, a red language you can read with half-closed eyes. Someone stirs the pot for the last time, the ladle tapping a farewell against iron. A heel of bread is saved for morning. The salt pouch is tied and set away like treasure in a child's pocket. Stories begin in low voices, not epics. Small histories. The year the cow calved early and chose her own doorway. The time the river stepped over its banks and borrowed the path. A saint who once visited in a dream and left only a scent of rosemary and a better night's sleep. Laughter arrives in brief flights. Careful not to wake the child already sliding sideways on the pallet. Wool is mended under the candles steady. A hem receives a square of darker cloth. A sleeve accepts 3 firm stitches and forgives the day. Thread licks the needle and passes through. The bone thimble taps like a tiny clock, keeping its own kind of time. Hands do what they know, even when words drift and stop. The room smells of smoke and clean wool and bread that once was warm. Tools are checked for morning. A knife gets a few quiet passes on the stone until its whisper becomes smooth. The hose. Handle is rubbed where the palm will rest. A hinge receives a single tear of oil and sighs. Each thing returns to its place, a private vow between object and work. The door bar lowers with a soft, seasoned confidence. The bucket sits by the threshold like a moon that plans to rise again. Outside, the lane forgets itself into dark. The churchyard waits, close as breath. Names on wood and stone are part of the village the way roots are part of trees. Unseen, unless you bend and look for them, always there. The idea of loss walks by the door, and finding no invitation, keeps walking. Someone crosses themselves, without saying why. Someone else lifts the child and tucks a blanket to the chin. You lie down among familiar breathing. The straw gives a patient rustle, a field becoming a bed. The blanket weighs the body into the earth's steady embrace. A cousin settles an arm across your ribs without waking. Feet find their places by memory. The roof ticks softly as thatch remembers the day's heat and lets it go. The hut is one held breath, then another, each answering the one beside it. In this world, rest is not an indulgence. It is survival. Muscles unstring themselves and hang quiet. The back forgives the bucket, the fence, the row. Eyes rest from reading the weather in the hedge and the hours in the post's shadow. The mind sets down its list like a basket and leaves it by the door. You do not own the night. You borrow it so tomorrow can have you back. Now and then the wind tries a seam. The shutter replies with a respectful creak and then forgets. A hen rearranges her certainty in the corner. The goat, convinced that philosophy is best practiced asleep, breathes the slow, grassy breath that calms the room. Even the embers. Glow seems to blink at the pace of a heart that has decided to trust. Perhaps you wonder, in that soft drift before sleep, whether a short life knows it is short. or whether any life feels long enough when evenings are kept this way. Tools quiet, stories folded, wool mended, breath shared. Maybe length is a trick of light. Maybe what matters is how the day learns to end. Candles lower their flames, like voices trailing into kindly silence. The last thread is snipped with careful teeth and tucked away. Someone whispers goodnight to no one in particular, and everyone at once. A small hand finds yours and stops searching dot like all things this passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of centuries turning over in their sleep. The bell is only memory now. The roof settles its small opinions and agrees. You are warm. You are not hungry. The dark holds you the way old wood holds warmth. The past is gone, and so are today's worries. You can rest now. Gentle vignette. Catherine the Great, quiet ambition. See her first as Sophie in a colder court. A candle cupped in the winter air, turning pages with hands that already believe, fought, and steady the world. The corridors carry a hush that belongs to snow. Her breath clouds once, then dissolves. She reads anyway. The room is lamp and ink, wool and wood. A pen lies like a thin promise across parchment. She sets it to the page and lets the nib find. Its rhythm small rivers of script that begin with curiosity and end as letters bound for distant minds. Languages gather around her chair like polite guests. She answers each in turn, careful and precise, enjoying the weight of new sounds on. The tongue. Russian arrives slow and stubborn at first, then kind. French walks in already confident. German stands quietly by, remembering her earlier name. A map is unrolled. The cloth remembers its creases, then lies flat, accepting her fingertips as they travel. Rivers thread their blue through the pale. Cities hang like beads. Beyond the familiar edges, the space is not empty so much as patient. She sees distances the way some see melodies, long phrases, repeated motifs, places where the tune must change key. Snow taps the window frame in keeping time. Power does not arrive in a shout. It is a series of careful steps. A petition. Phrase to leave the door unlatched. A set of laws drafted with more light than heat. A hand laid on a book as if to steady the words inside. She buys a library not as display, but as a conversation she cannot afford to lose. The crates arrive like modest ships and dock along the walls. Spines line up. Ideas learn Russian by proximity. In the evenings, she walks among them. A private procession. Her fingers pause at names that have lately become voices in her letters. This one on tolerance. That one on law. A thin volume about gardens where order and freedom make a treaty in green. Advisors fall quiet when she listens. Not out of fear, but because listening changes the shape of a room. She lets talk curl and uncurl. She asks one question that does. Not accuse, it remembers. The answer comes more honest than anyone expected. She marks the thought with the smallest tilt of her head and moves a paper half an inch closer. Change here is not thunder. It is the sound the page makes when turned. Later, in a study where the fire approves without fuss, her pen lifts again. A note to a philosopher whose books have already stood their ground on her desk. Admiration with corners rounded off. Disagreement speaking softly from the next chair. She believes in argument like a well-paved road, wide enough to welcome, smooth, enough to travel, edged with lamps. A draft of a code rests under a paperweight. She reads aloud the parts that ask for mercy, the parts that ask for sense. What is a nation? She almost whispers to the empty room. If not a long negotiation with itself? In the silence that follows, the question feels less like a riddle than a map legend, a key to colors and lines dotted the window. The courtyard is a still score of light and shadow. Footmen move like commas across the snow. The hour sounds from somewhere higher than the clouds. a bell that refuses drama. She warms her hands and returns to the margin with a pencil that leaves gray, merciful notes. Simplify, delay, consider. Not. Everything bends. She learns that too. Weather keeps its own counsel. People carry old winters in their bones. But thought, she decides, is a kind of stove quiet, efficient, patient. It heats the air, even when the door opens, and lets the cold in. She closes a volume, and it leaves its warmth on her palmed out. In small rooms nearby, a scene is adjusted in a uniform. An account book counts without ambition, neat and unbothered. Somewhere a young page sleeps with a Latin grammar under his cheek, as if knowledge were a gentle pillow. The palace breathes, wood settling in its frames, stone remembering quarries and time. A ruler's work tonight is mostly the practice of being unhurried in a world that wants hurry. The candle tilts lower. She blots the last line and waits for the ink to turn from wet shine to matte certainty. The map rolls back into itself with a soft whisper, a landscape becoming a scroll again. She leaves the pen aligned with the edge of the paper, as if a straight line could make sleep easier to find. Perhaps, in that quiet moment, she feels what we all feel when we decide to be steady. The weight of time pressing gently against the heart, asking for care, not conquest. She answers without speaking. Tomorrow will be letters, laws, a library to walk through, as if it were a garden of winter fruit. Tonight, it is enough to let thought glow like banked coals. Like all things, it passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh the candles small. Sound as the wick is pinched, and darkness becomes gentle again. Snow keeps writing its soft script on the window. Pages rest. The empire, such as it is, does what it can do in peace. It sleeps. Gentle Vignette 2. The Red Queen of Palenque rests where the jungle keeps its breath inside a sealed chamber. Stone cool as shade, silence heavy and kind. The doorway once closed like lips. The world above went on. Here time folded its hands. Room is small enough for whispers to arrive and realize they aren't needed. Limestone sweats a little. The air holds the sleep of centuries. A slab waits with the patience of mountains, and on it the signs of care. A jade mask, a small vessel, and a dusting of red laid like dawn across skin life, renewed in powder and promise. There is no inscription to tell us what to feel, only intention. A mask carved to meet a face in its next way of being. A cup for breath or rain or offerings of scent. Threads that once tied, beads that once answered light with quiet. Green. Everything soft, everything sure. You can almost hear the hands that placed it all. The way careful makes a sound when it slows. Outside, leaves speak with rain in long sentences. Inside, the chamber attends to its own rhythm. Drop, pause. Drop, a sound like a heartbeat you only. Notice when the rest of the world has agreed to be still. Thus turns the beam of your imagined lamp into slow gold. If you stand here, you understand why people thought stones had memory. Her title arrives softly in the mind. Red Queen, not the color of trumpet and battle, but the tint of cinnabar earth. In bloom, meant to keep a path open between what was and what goes on. We do not know her name. The silence suggests one and then another, and then asks you to set them down. Anonymity does not mean absence. It means the room has chosen to speak in shapes instead of letters. We imagine her tomb aligned to the sun's patient path, as temples in this city often were. Morning taps the walls with a pale knuckle. Noon lays a hand on the stone. Evening withdraws without offense. Perhaps on a day the builders agreed upon, a blade of light would have entered differently, climbing to a ledge, touching the mast, turning jade to a pond for a single breath. Intention can be architecture as much as prayer. Think of the city. Above, all terraces and watercourses and corridors painted with voices. Think of the stair that once led down through the body of the temple, narrowing the world to foot, step, echo, candle, breath. At the end of that descent, an arrival that felt like landing in a word you had been trying to remember. Then closure. Then the jungle returning and forgetting, and then remembering again. We focus on the calm. A pen would scratch in a far-off palace. Here a brush once carried red across a still cheek. Somewhere, a scribe would press a glyph into wet stucco. Here, a mask took shape in quiet green and waited for its one face. The contrast is not a quarrel. It is a harmony different instruments, the same slow music of care. A small vessel sits at her side, as if thirst were a polite guest and might be offered a drink. The dust of cinnabar holds to the angles like dawn that refuse to leave. Jade, reeds cool to the eye, river-born and time-polished, a color that answers heat with composure. The chamber is not sad. It is considered. It is an answer to the old question of how to place love where hands cannot return. Perhaps, in that quiet moment, you feel the weight of time pressing gently against the heart. Not grief, presence. She lived. She was placed. She is here. And the city and the canopy and the rain are all partners in the keeping. We do not need her deeds tonight. We need only the proof of the settling red and the thoughtful green and the way the room holds them both without strain. What was her title, truly? Mother, ruler, priest, all or none? The mask doesn't say. The vessel doesn't explain. The chamber offers a lesson in trust, that meaning can be carried in arrangement, alone north to south, head to west, water to lip, cinnabar to bone. The sun is slow enough to understand. So are we, if we let ourselves be. Outside, roots travel like long memories through stone. A bird calls once, and then decides the hour belongs to crickets. Inside, the last flake of red settles, as if finishing. A sentence written in powder. The door has not moved in a very long time, yet the room breathes stone in, stone out with the jungle. Like all things, this passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the slow exhale of a sealed place at peace. With its keeping. The mask keeps its face. The vessel keeps its emptiness like a promise. The red keeps its dawn. The silence here is full, not empty. And when you step away in your mind, it remains unalarmed, aligned to the patient path of light, waiting without want for another day to begin. Gentle Vignette 3. Frida Kahlo. At the blue house cobalt walls breathing a quiet sky, a wheeled bed waiting beneath a mirror that makes the ceiling into a steady lake. Morning in Kyokan steps across cool tile. A courtyard fountain counts the hour with small hands of water. The light has learned this house by heart. On a rolling tray, brushes lie like tame birds. Pigments wait in small bowls. Earth ground into color. Vermilion that remembers fruit. Green that remembers leaves after rain. Blue that agrees with the walls and the day. A jar of water holds yesterday's clouds in a faint swirl. Cloths sleep folded. The room is ready to translate. Pain becomes picture. Picture becomes language. She does not paint dreams. She arranges reality until it listens. She lifts a brush and ties a ribbon at her wrist, a quiet brace, a promise of steadiness. A dress is chosen not for fashion, but for conversation with. Light, red to answer blue, yellow to keep a corner warm, white to let the breath pass. Ribbons are braided into her hair like lines of melody. The mirror above the bed waits without judgment. She looks, then looks again. The face is familiar and new, a gaze that will not step aside, brows like a single strong stroke, a mouth that refuses too much performance. There is a necklace of shadow the morning places there every day. She keeps it. She keeps the small scar where night stayed longer once. She adds a flower, not to escape, but to include. On the table, a plate holds fruit that has agreed to be. Stared at, limes with their own light inside. Papaya, patient and orange. Watermelons with rind like polished stone. A knife waits and does nothing. Seeds shine with the calm of counted things. She paints them true. She paints them arranged. She paints them so they speak the sentence she needs. From the courtyard, a parrot comments on the weather. A Zolo dog settles in the cool of a doorway and pretends not to watch. A cactus keeps its still posture. A blue cup holds brushes upright, like a bouquet of thin intentions. A breeze visits and leaves the curtains in their usual grammar. The cobalt walls keep their promise. They hold, but do not press dot. She paints the body the way a mapmaker draws rivers. Honest, meandering, and going where they must. A corset becomes a white field, a place for vines to grow and hold without harm. Ribbons cross and tie, not to confine, but to keep. She adds a small bird. She adds a leaf where the world once broke and then learned how to carry weight again. The brush whispers, stops, whispers again. Sometimes she writes on the painting, a quiet sentence to keep it company, not explanation. A hand on her shoulder. A reminder the morning will understand later. Viva la vida. Not shouted placed. The letters stand on their green ground like small, brave trees. Life, yes, even like this. Especially like this dot, the day deepens. Colors find their full voices, and then agree to be part of a choir. A tray wheels a little closer, a knob adjusted with a practiced flick. A sip of coffee cools enough to be kind. A visitor's laugh comes and goes along the corridor like a ribbon of sound. She does not hurry the brush to match it. She has learned. That speed belongs to other arts. Her hands know when to stop for a breath. A towel lifts, touches a wrist, returns. The mirror offers a new angle because the sun has moved. She raises the brush and lays down a blue that is not the wall's blue, but the memory of it, softened. She grounds a red with a small measure of earth, so it will stay where it is put. She pulls a black line that is not punishment, but the sentence. That makes the paragraph make sense. That afternoon leans. The courtyard warms then cools. Shadows of leaves draw lace on the floor. In the kitchen, painted flowers on yellow tile behave like companions. A potato basket smells like ordinary kindness. This too steadies her. The world is not only picture and pain. It is also the comfort of spoons, the logic of shelves, the way a room remembers its people. She returns to the canvas to give the eyes their last quiet. Not shine listening. She lifts a soft brush and gives the mouth its truth, which is neither smile nor refusal. Background and blouse and earring come to an accord. She steps back. Gravity makes itself known. She sits, then lies back, and the mirror finds her face from another sky-evening. The blue deepens until it holds a little night. A small lamp makes a circle that keeps the dark polite. On the table, a watermelon wedge keeps its red even after. The light goes. She writes the words again, smaller this time, on a paper that will become a note for tomorrow. Viva la vida. Not a slogan, a steady whisper. A prayer for morning dot, and so, beneath the same stars we see tonight, she arranges what is true until it is bearable, and then until it is beautiful in a way that does not lie. The jar clears as the pigment falls to the bottom. The brushes lean together and dry. The house breathes with its cobalt lungs. Like all things, the day passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of paint settling, of ribbons letting go, of life still here, making room for sleep. Return to the pillow. Why one day was enough? Because a single day can hold a century's worth of breath if you listen to it slowly. Your head meets the softness you've earned. The cloth knows your name. Night lifts a quiet hand and smooths the crease that history left between your eyes. You have crossed one medieval day and three gentle horizons. Dawn began with a bell and a room of wood and straw. You carried water by the well rope's patient song. You learned the language of tools lift place, step rest. You ate the steady warmth of pottage, broke dark bread, sipped small ale that promised safety more than excitement. You tied knots that lived in your hands. You shared the lane with modest privacy and the wisdom of hedges. It was enough because the day asked nothing clever, only presence dot beyond that hedge. You walked softly through other rooms of time. You stood near Catherine's candle, while a pen traced a nation's temper into calm. A map unrolled like a long thought. You stood in a chamber in Palenque, where the jungle's breath paused, where cinnabar settled like dawn, and jade kept a face at peace. You stepped into cobalt light in Kyokan, where a mirror above a wheeled bed returned a gaze unbroken, where brushes turned pain into a grammar that meant life. 3 horizons, each patient, thought, keeping, making. You did not last a day because it was not made for you, and that is a kindness, not a failure. Their rooms were built to different weather, different rules, different clocks. Your world holds clean water at a turn, soft light at a switch, time to choose how to spend the mornings. First, quiet. You are allowed comforts they could only arrange by ritual. Boiling and brewing, prayer and careful hands. You have them without ceremony. Receive them with gratitude. Tonight, we keep the best of their endurance and release the rest. Keep the rhythm of work measured by light, not by anxiety. Let shadow's length be your schedule. Keep the kindness of mending patch the small tear in your day with thread and patience, not shame. Keep the habit of listening like Catherine's head tilted at the right word, like the bell reminding without scolding, like Frida's brush waiting for the line that tells the truth without shouting. Keep the tenderness of anonymity. How? The village held peace because everyone mattered and no one had to be remembered to deserve it. Release what chafes. Set down the drafts that walk through every scene, the water carried heavy before dawn, the hunger that counted salt like treasure. Let the harsher edges blur and pass by, the court's weight, the sealed quiet of stone, the body's argument. With gravity, you are not required to live there, only to visit, to learn, and to come home gentler. Breathe in. Wood smoke that became memory. Candle wax, the cool of stone stair. Cobalt air. Breathe out. The knot that wasn't yours, the ache. You borrowed from a field, the echo of a bell that belongs to another century. Notice what remains when you empty your hands. A small steadiness that came from carrying, a deeper quiet that came from listening. Perhaps, in this soft return, you feel how time forgives us when we let it. If empires die, they die into fields, and kitchens into rooms with mirrors and rooms with maps, into a sealed chamber that keeps dawn forever, into the blue of a house that learned how to sing. The living are the ones who learn to arrange the day so it can hold them. You did that today in a little way. That is enough. Your pillow is not straw. It remembers you anyway. Your blanket is not scratchy wool. It is still a patient animal that knows how to hold warmth without asking questions. You can open a tap and hear the luxury of safety. You can dim a lamp and make a candle's peace without the worry of flame. You have time to decide the order of your morning. That space is a kind of library you carry within your ribs. Keep what steadied you. The slow spoon in the pot, the good knot in the cord, the careful phrase. The way red can mean life, and a ribbon can mean resolve. Keep the rule that rest is not an indulgence. It is survival. Everything made from breath law, art. Harvest begins again only after sleep has forgiven the day. Listen, the last note of the far-off bell thins until it becomes the shape of silence. The mirror above your bed is only ceiling now, ordinary and kind. Your breath takes the room's measure and sets a slower time. Like all things, this day passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of centuries turning over in their sleep. The past is gone, and so are today's worries. Return to the pillow. Let your thoughts fold themselves small. Let the best of what you borrowed stay. Let the rest go where it belongs, into the good dark. You can rest now. Soft resets for sleep begin when the breath becomes your bell, slow, steady, and always there. If you're still awake, let the counting be gentle music. Inhale for 4. 1, 2, 3. Fold for 2. 1, 2. Exhale for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, as softly as a candle, remembering how to glow. Feel the pillow rise and fall, a small tide under your cheek. The room cools by a thread. The body hears the bell inside the chest and answers with a yes that doesn't need words. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Each round smooths the bright edge off a thought, turns it quiet, sets it down. Picture straw becoming a mattress crackle, softening into hush, loose stalks settling into a single kind surface. See a candle becoming a lamp, the same flame, now held in glass, made patient and safe. Imagine a path becoming a road wider, gentler, easier to follow in moonlight. Each change is a comfort. Each comfort is a reason to rest. Let the jaw unfasten. By a fraction, let the shoulders slide an inch toward gravity. Allow the tongue to settle like a small boat, finding the still part of the harbor. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. If a thought returns, let it pass like a traveler with directions already in hand. Remember the day you borrowed, the bell, the fields, the quiet work. Keep only the rhythm. Release the weight. Keep only the kindness. Release the urgency. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. The breath is a rope to the well. You draw calm up from a deeper place without rushing. Now, turn the straw to a mattress again, just a little more. The blanket is the animal that stays warm and faithful. Your bed learns your outline and keeps it. The room darkens to a color you trust. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. The exhale is longer on purpose. It tells the heart that night is allowed to begin. See the candle becoming a lamp, and the lamp becoming a soft star. The switch is only a whisper. It does not wake the world. Shadows agree to stay where they are. What you need to remember will be waiting in the morning with both hands open. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Let the numbers blur. Into the feeling of them. If your mind tries to list, give it gentler work. Stack folded towels in a quiet room. Sweep a small square of floor with even strokes. Arrange smooth stones along a windowsill, each one a breath. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Work that ends in stillness is the best kind for night. Picture the path widening into a road you do not have to walk right now. There is time. There is a turnoff that leads directly to sleep, and you are already taking it without lifting your head. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Imagine someone you trust doing the counting for you, the way bells remember how. Many times to ring. If the body fidgets, negotiate kindly. Toes curl and uncurl once. The hands rest where the heart can feel them, not as a guard, but as a promise. The breath keeps its measure. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Longer out than in. Like a tide forgetting the shore on purpose. Light grows softer inside the eyes. Thoughts grow farther away. like boats easing toward the horizon. You are not the weather. You are the harbor. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. The pillow is straw, is mattress, is cloud each softer. Then the last dot, every change you picture is a kindness offered to your own time. Straw to mattress, candle to lamp, path to road, effort to ease. Inhale for 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. The past has gone where it always goes, and the future is not here yet. Only this simple bell of breath remains, ringing softly and then softer still. Like all things, wakefulness passes. Not with thunder, but with a sigh, the sound of centuries turning over in their sleep. Let the count fade. Let the room listen. Let the last light close its eyes. The past is gone, and so are today's worries. You can rest now. Asterisk, the mud has settled. Torches gutter out, and the centuries close like a door. Let the rain at the window. Stand in for distant roofs of slate and straw. You pass the clang of iron and the hush of cloisters, a bread hard as stone and weather that ruled every choice. See how far you are from that hunger, that cold. The past is a distant shoreline. Now, tonight's worries are small waves fading on the sand. Breathe. You are home, and time is gentle here. When you wake, share a stoic line in the comments. I release what is not mine to steer. I tend what is, or craft your own brief, honest. Steady. Let it be the hinge the day turns on dot. Thank you for drifting through time with me. If you enjoyed this quiet wander, you can like or subscribe whenever you wake. For now, keep the room dim, the fan low, and let the church bell of 1325 fade into the soft hum of home. Good night.